because of that, there's so much we can talk about, but let's talk about, you mentioned May. So let's talk about Drake.
That was kind of tongue in
Maye.
cheek. I'm glad you picked that up.
Yes. So he's been probably at the forefront of most conversations with the Patriots since he was drafted, for good reason, of course. But there's a lot of speculation about if he's going to start his rookie year, and people have a lot of takes on that, especially after seeing the schedule. I think they're ranked, what was it? I think it was within the top 10 for strength of schedule, which
it's like 4, like on balance.
Yeah. And of course, you
tough.
can take that with a grain of salt. You could, there are people who live and die by it, and there are people who ignore it. But because they have Jacoby Brissett, who was brought in presumably to be the bridge quarterback, most people assume he is going to be the starter, unless for some reason Drake Maye just completely shows out this summer and wins the job. So assuming we don't know who's going to be the starter, do you think Drake Maye could start the season, or do you think that he'll get a start maybe like midway through? Do you think he'll play at all as a rookie?
He definitely will play. I feel very confident in that. I think if he starts, let's work backwards. So if he starts week 1, I take it as a really great sign, because I think that the way they structured how they were building the team, they meaning Elliott Wolf, Drake Maye, the rest of the front office, the way I feel like they structured the team is like they knew that it was going to be a slow kind of rise. And I can tell you with confidence, they told every free agent at the beginning of March that they were going to sign a veteran quarterback, and then they were going to draft a quarterback at 3 overall. That's what they were telling players from the legal tampering period, basically from the scouting combine on. And then they sold, then they signed, Jacoby to a 1-year, $8 million deal, and they drafted Drake Maye 3 overall. So that was, they followed kind of along. They've been very transparent in what their plans are and how they're kind of attacking things. And we can get to that later. But staying on the quarterback specifically, I think that it would be a great sign for Drake if he was able to start week 1, because I know that the guys who are in place right now wouldn't put him in that position if they didn't feel super confident in where he was. Now there's a lot of pressure not on him to start week 1. I think it'll be probably closer to 4 to 8 starts, depending on how the season goes, and we'll get to that as well. But for me, I think that Drake Maye, entrust the defense to do what they're going to do. They feel like the offense is going to take a step forward, and it's probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve under AVP, but then you're going to have a veteran quarterback. And let's be honest, if they had, Jacoby Brissett is not a starting quarterback, but he's a very good backup. And if they had even that level of quarterback play last year, they'd probably win 2 or 3 more games, because there was a lot of 1-score games. So I think they feel confident in where they are right now, and I don't feel like they feel any pressure to put Drake Maye in a situation where he's not prepared. They know they're not a Super Bowl contender this year, and they're going to build towards that goal over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if like Bill Belichick were still around, then there probably would be some more pressure there, just because of the whole Mac Jones debacle. Like he would be potentially playing his last season as the Patriots head coach, so there would be that added pressure. But I think it's hard because there's so many people who are split on this. Of course, when you draft somebody number 3 overall, the assumption is they're going to be the starter right away. But as we've seen, even if we're going to look back at Mac Jones and Drake Maye are not the same, so I'm not saying that, but you could argue that Mac Jones maybe shouldn't have started his rookie season, and some people have even talked about Patrick Mahomes. He sat for a year and he got to learn from a veteran. So perhaps somebody like Mac Jones could have benefited from sitting behind somebody for another year. So I could see that being a valid point with Drake Maye, because there are people who have such opposite takes on Maye and his potential in the NFL, which I want to ask you, what do you think of Drake Maye's potential? Because there are people who are saying he's the best quarterback of the entire class. I mean, even I guess maybe outside of Caleb Williams, because I think everybody had him as the number one. But then there are people who believe that he's the second coming of Mitch Trubisky, because they both went to North Carolina. They were both quite young, and they were not as experienced as the other quarterbacks in the class. I am not a college football connoisseur, so I cannot say whether or not I feel a certain way about Maye or not. I'm always just an optimistic person, so I believe wherever he gets in, he's going to be the best that he can. But I'm curious about your take.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of different ways to take that. So I guess if we're going to drill down on it, it would be like, what's Drake Maye's potential? So to me, you know, I want to lay the foundation. Obviously, your listeners, I'm sure there are maybe a few that maybe listen to my podcast.
Sure,
but not everybody does. But yeah, you know, and you mentioned it, Patriots 4th and 2. Like, Steve and I have talked about Drake Maye probably since like November, if I'm being honest. Like, it was very early on. We were looking at the draft process because we knew where the season was heading.
Yep.
And you know, Drake Maye is a person where you have. He comes from there. There's so many great things to like about him. Now, yeah, to your point, is everyone going to like him? Are there negatives? No one's not everyone's going to like everybody. And of course, there are negative traits about him. But if I start with the positives, and I'll keep it super brief because, you know, everybody's talked about, you know, the draft stuff for a while now. But basically, you know, with Drake Maye, you're talking about someone who's, you know, 6'3", 6'4", 220, 230, depending on who you talk to. Competitive family guy. You know, he has a competitive mindset, wants to do better, genuinely cares. All the guys in the locker room love him. I've talked to a current player who was a rookie last year in Indianapolis, Josh Downs. I've talked to Tez Walker, who he played with last year. You know, he played with the last couple of years, but I've talked to his receivers, a couple of guys from his line. You know, they rave about him. The coaches rave about him. I mean, this is someone who is going to put his best foot forward. And, you know, I think if he reaches his potential, he'll be a top 10 quarterback in the league. I just think it's going to take a little bit of patience. Right now, they're really focusing on footwork. He had a footwork issue, you know, really most of his career, but specifically more even last year. And just given Alex Van Pelt's offense, they really want to make sure that things are structured a certain way. So they're really trying to work from the ground floor up, which is why they're not in a super hurry, because they know that Jacoby Brissett is someone who's played in the league and someone who's played in this system. So there are a lot of great things about him, and I think people should be excited about it. But I do think it's going to be a slow build. You probably won't see a ton of return this first year, but I think moving forward, it's going to be going the right way.
No, I agree. Like, obviously, I'm someone who is not well versed in his college career, so I can't speak on that. But I did like the video. I don't remember if it was the Patriots that posted it, but you could see the leadership that he has naturally. Like, they're at OTAs, and
guys love him.
Yeah, he's already communicating with the receivers and like trying to give them tips and like telling them like what he's going to do, stuff like that. Like, that is so important. And that was something that a lot of people criticized Mac Jones for. They felt like he never took over the team, or he just wasn't like that natural leader, whatever critique people wanted to have. And seeing a 21-year-old rookie doing this in the first moments that he has, you know, with his new team, I think that's pretty cool. And to your point about it, people needing to be patient, that is something I've been screaming for the last handful of years, because I think we are so accustomed to the Patriots being ready to go, being championship ready every single season, that expectation is still there. And while that's not necessarily a bad mindset to have, it is when you don't have Tom Brady, when you don't have Bill Belichick, when you don't have all those pieces that made up those teams for so long. So then when you're putting these unreal expectations on a young team, it's kind of unfair. And I always say, it's not just unfair to the players, it's unfair to you, because then you're sitting there expecting them to be a playoff team or a team that's winning double-digit games or going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, you got to be a little bit more realistic here, because you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. I think that they've done a great job with who they've added, but like you said, patience is key right now.
Yeah, I think patience is key with Drake Maye specifically, just because, like, I think it's just going to take him, a year or year and a half. I think you'll probably see it within 2 years. But, like, I think it's going to take a little bit of time just to basically let him kind of settle in. I mean, this is a new regime, a new offense. He's transitioning from college to pro. He's still a super young guy. It's just going to take a little bit of time before he can kind of put it all together. And I think, and I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to happen, but if it clicks, and I feel confident it will, but I'm not, like I said, I mean, it's not a simple projection, college to pro. Everybody's different, but he has all the tools, and I think he's going into a really good situation. I think some people are downplaying how well of a situation it is. I think after Bill, left the organization, I think they've done a really good job filling out some veterans. Now, someone like a Ben McAdoo or an Alex Van Pelt might not inspire a ton of confidence from some Patriots fans, and I get that. And I have my concerns as well. I will say also that just because people aren't necessarily head coaches doesn't mean they're bad coaches in general. And if you talk to different people from different organizations that these guys were affiliated with, they're raving about what they can do for these young players. And so I think Drake Maye is actually in a really, really good spot. I just think it might take, I think there's a lot of people who just want like quick results, and it's just not going to be like that. I would be shocked if he started week 1 and like lit it up. Would it be great? Absolutely. Yeah. We would both love that. Everybody listening would love that. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think you're looking closer to like halfway through the season. He'll probably play somewhere between 4 to 8 games. And then you'll see kind of a little bit of what he has. It's going to be a little bit of patchwork, a little bit of like up and down, but you're going to see the arm talent, and you're going to see a lot of his good traits shine through, but you're going to see some of his struggles too, his inconsistencies, and things like that. But he's a young kid who's eager to learn, who by all accounts, his coaches just absolutely love him. I think it's going to be a really good fit in the long term.